because now a lot of them watch our stuff. But I remember I've told this story before when my grandma got saved, and she hated our Christianity and talked about it prolifically. And her and my great aunts would say, oh, you're one of those TV evangelists, because I was on TV sometimes. And they compared me to only the Jimmy Swaggart. That's the only thing that they had in comparison. I'm like, do I even sound like him or look like him? They're like, well, that's the only context, And my grandma one time, my friend Hona and I, we went to do conferences for like 8 months up in Spokane. And so we would visit my grandma every time. And one time after 4 or 5 months, she came to one of my meetings and thought I was a master hypnotist and illusionist. She thought I was great. She thought, the mentalist? She thought I was a mentalist. And she was like, you are great. You can call things out of people, and how do you do it? Tell me your tricks. I won't tell anybody. She was convinced. So months into this, if she was not in my family, I would have never spent time with her again, because she's bitter. She doesn't know Jesus. She's frustrating. She's negative on all things. But my heart, because she's family, is completely connected. So I love spending time with her. I was like, oh, let's go visit grandma. And her favorite words were hell and damn it. They just were her favorite words. So one day I come up to her house, and we'd rented a car, and we come up to her house, and she slams open her screen door, and she's standing there, and she's like, well, I'm saved, damn it. And she looks so angry. And Hona and I look at each other and I go, what, Grandma? And she says it again. And I go, Grandma, I don't understand the words coming in her mouth. What does that mean to you? Like, and she goes, come on in here. I got to tell you the story. So she didn't even let us pull our stuff into our room. She's just and she has 2 of her sisters and then one of their best friends on these couches. She goes, I'm going to tell you all the story. She goes, I was watching that TV and I hate that Jan Crouch. She's so fake. And she starts oozing bitterness towards Jan Crouch. I love Jan Crouch. I'm like, that's so sad. And I'm like, is there a good point to this story, Grandma? Why are you watching Christian television? Who are you? She goes, and then all of a sudden, Jan Crouch brought that young man, Carmen, on. He is not a young man, but I love him. But brought that young man. But to my grandma, who's in her 80s at the time, he's a young man. So he comes up and he starts singing one of those songs, and he has the voice of an angel. And he started to share why you need Jesus, and it made sense to my heart. And he led us through a prayer to accept Jesus into our hearts. And I prayed that prayer. She starts crying. And I'm like, my grandma got saved through Carmen and TBN. I'm like, I'm in awe of God at this point, because I'm like, my grandma, who hates all things Christian and all things Christian television, watches TBN of all things, and I love TBN, but TBN of all things, and gets saved. And I'm just sitting there listening to her, and she pours out 4 hours of, I couldn't even go to the bathroom. She just poured out 4 hours of purged her whole life to all of us, all these secrets she's never told. And then my great aunt Millie goes, this reminds me of when I went down to Angela's Temple and saw Sister Amy Sybil McPherson. She's Catholic, and she goes, I went down there with a bunch of my Catholic friends, and she goes, that's the only time I felt what I'm feeling in this room right now. In my whole life. I'm like, you saw Amy Sybil McPherson? I'm like, pray for me, putting her hands on my head. Wait a minute. And my one aunt, who'd been a lesbian for over 60 years, is just sitting in the chair, just crying the whole time. And I'm just watching, my family, looking at them going, I would have never spent time with any of these people if they weren't my family, and I love them so dearly. And the Lord spoke to me and said, will you love the world this way? Because they're not qualified to spend time with me, and I'm not qualified to spend time with them, because we don't have the same interests, the same ideas, the same feelings, the same emotions, the same politics, the same anything. But we have family. And there's a part of us that's taken that out of the equation, and part of translating God's heart on the earth. You will not hear God powerfully if you are not willing to go to a place that says, it's not us and them, it's us.